Welcome to the Infinite Energy Podcast. My name is Danny Mueller, VP of Sales and Marketing at Frankensolar Americas. With me today, as always, is Alexander Wolf. He's
Great to be here.
Product engineer here at Frankensolar. And today, our guest is Lindsay Showers-Pearce. She is the Business Development Manager at Energuy, Canada. She is highly energetic and results-oriented leadership and administration professional, an efficient, creative, and critical thinker. Her success comes from positivity and motivational skills, along with her empathetic and supportive demeanor. Attention to detail and organization are her forte. Welcome, Lindsay, to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I was so excited to have you. It's such a timely thing as well with what's going on with the Greener Homes program, which is something you guys are focusing on, obviously, at Energuy. But to get started, we'd like to know a little bit more about you and find out a little bit more about you. So Lindsay, why don't you tell us a little bit about, growing up and kind of where you came from? And
Yeah, awesome. Well, long story short, I was born in Parry Sound, so I'm a northern girl by nature. I grew up mostly in Paris, Ontario, which is a tiny little town. We spent a little bit of time in British Columbia as well when I was young, and then we moved back when my just before my youngest brother was born, and we've been here ever since. So I'm married for 15 years now. My husband and I have two boys. Our oldest is 18, and our youngest is just turned 13. But they already tower over me.
yeah,
Myself, I guess a little bit of background. I'm an artist at heart. Actually, I love to paint, draw, sculpt.
Yeah.
And that's actually what I went to school for.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what did you study and where?
I took the Fine Arts Bachelor's course at York University.
Yeah.
I did only do 1 year. At that point, it was a cost efficiency thing. What am I really going to get at the end of it? I don't really want to be a starving artist, and the amount of money that you have to pay for schooling for art school and all the supplies and everything is astronomical. So at that point, life took a little bit of a shift, and here I am, a bunch of years later.
And you mentioned you lived in BC as well. Mm-hmm. Where in BC did you live?
We were in Maple Ridge.
Yeah.
My stepfather has family there, so we moved out there. My uncle still lives out there, actually. I believe he's in Kelowna at this point.
Yeah.
But it was beautiful. The first month that we were there, it was completely foggy the entire month. And then the end of July came, August started, and the clouds and all the fog went away, and all of a sudden it was like there was mountains in your backyard.
Yeah.
It was just incredible.
It is a gorgeous province for sure. You're mentioning a little bit about hobbies and being in the arts field. So what kind of stuff do you do?
My true passion is painting. I love to paint. I love to just play with color. I love to blend. I love to mix. I like to just, it's more of an expressive type of an art that I do, I guess. I dabble in a little bit of everything, but I really like to paint painted rocks, actually.
Okay.
There's the Kindness Rocks movement.
Okay.
It's around the world. People will paint rocks and they'll leave them places, and then you can find it and take it and keep it or put it in a new place or whatever. But it just spreads a little bit of kindness and a little bit of cheer. And for me, having two kids and a full-time job, being able to paint on canvases all the time, I don't really have time for that. So when I do, that's awesome. But if I don't have time and I just need to get that creativity out, I'll paint a little rock. It takes like 10 minutes, and it gives you that satisfaction of completing the project. Helps keep that going.
That's really cool, actually, and I didn't know about that. I had about a year and a half ago in the summer, all of a sudden there were rocks outside my door, painted on by I guess some kids or whatever, and we had no idea what it was, and my wife and I were like, why do people do this? But now that makes so much sense.
Yeah, and it's everywhere, honestly. It's so funny. Last year, I did Christmas marketing, 2022.
Yeah.
And I painted up a whole bunch because I'm super corny.
Yeah.
I painted up a bunch of Energuy rocks. So it's just a green rock with a smiley face, some sparkles. And on the back, it says Energuy Rocks. And I gave them out to my contractors with the boxes of cookies that I was delivering. And, this last year when I went back out Christmas marketing, do you know how many people I stopped at and the first thing they did was they pulled out my rock.
Yeah.
And they're like, I keep it with me all the time. I keep it on my desk. The one salesperson that I met with, he keeps it in his his sales jacket pocket, so it gives him some confidence out in the field. I was like, that's amazing.
That's interesting.
That's why I paint.
So how did you move from painting and the artist career, more or less, into sustainability? What are you doing now?
Well, interestingly enough, I went back to school in 2017 for medical office administration. And then after I graduated there, I started working in a doctor's office. And I love helping people. I did not enjoy that environment as a career choice.
Yeah.
So, I have all these office skills. I have administrative skills. I've worked as team leads before in call centers and things like that. And then all of a sudden, I saw a job posting for scheduling for Energuy. So I actually started out as a scheduler on the Energuy team back in 2017 and 2018, sorry. And from there, I moved into the sales role kind of by chance. Our previous business development manager had left to start a new career as a dance instructor. She opened up her own studio. So the position came open, and our president, Chris Nysonen, offered me an interview. And, at first I don't think he really kind of understood my scope of what, my understanding of the business. And once he realized that I already knew how to talk to the contractors and I already knew the program inside and out, he was like, okay, let's give you a shot. So, and history is what it is at this point, and here I am. It's been an incredible opportunity that I've had at Energuy, and
it's amazing how much of life and a career is by chance and being in the right spot at the right time, but being prepared for it and knowing your stuff. Like you said, you knew the programs, you knew the contractors, and then you were able to differentiate yourself and obviously got the position. So I always find it fascinating how much of your career is about that.
it's true.
Yeah, I was the same, like at Frankensolar, or not even Frankensolar, like how I got into solar. It was I had a job. It was like in school, and then I had this opportunity at Frankensolar, at Etho Solar at the time, working at a summer job there, and just kind of stuck around. Whenever there is an opportunity, put up my hand, like be there and take advantage of the opportunities. I think it's a big part of life.
It's true, and I think the worst thing that anybody could say is no.
Yeah.
So it's worth a shot, no matter what.
Exactly. You mentioned Energuy. Who is Energuy?
Oh, Energuy is amazing, actually. We've grown over the last 20 years. We're a service organization, and we do the energy assessments for the Greener Homes Grant, for the Enbridge Her Plus program, and many previous programs over the last 2 decades. But at this point, we have grown to be the biggest service organization in Canada. Okay. We service all of Ontario, all the way out to BC. So Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and BC we cover as well. And we also have grown back in, I think it was 2012, if I'm not mistaken. We opened up Energuy, California, which is a massive business. It's a little bit different activities than what we do here in Canada. But they do like HERS rating and T24s, and they do administer rebate programs down there too, which actually is very interesting because there's been a huge program announcement from the California board for a lot of money for heat pumps.
Yeah.
So, what happens there tends to come this way. Interesting.
So Energuy is a Canadian company, right?
We are. Yeah.
Where are they based out of?
So Energuy actually has six partners
Okay.
that run the business. They're all Brantford born and raised.
Okay.
We are a Brantford owned and operated business.
Very nice. I guess taking it to the big elephant in the room at this point, what's going on with the Greener Homes program, which a lot of people will be very interested in?
That's a great question. Well, I think like we were talking about earlier, I think the biggest consensus right now is that nobody really knows exactly what's happening. We've had very little communication from Enercan on this subject so far. Back in November of 2023, they mentioned to us that they expected the Greener Homes Grant to sunset somewhere around March 2024. They said the average rebate was higher than what they were expecting. What they were expecting was a $3,000 average rebate per homeowner, and what they're seeing, the reality average is about $3,600 per home. So a little bit quicker than what they were expecting. They said, don't worry, there's going to be another big announcement before Christmas regarding the green building strategy. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of that. But of course, then there was no announcement before Christmas. So we're still waiting. Here we are almost on the doorstep of February. Still no word from Enercan. They had called a town hall meeting with service organizations last week on Thursday and then canceled it at the last second. So, we're still kind of quiet there. Now, what we do know is that the Greener Homes Grant portal is still open for all other provinces that are led by Canada Greener Homes and run by Enercan directly.
Which ones are those?
So that would be Newfoundland, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and BC.
Okay.
And the territories as well, I'm sure. But Ontario, Quebec, and Nova Scotia Quebec and Nova Scotia started as partner-led programs. They were always separate from the Greener Homes Grant portal. And when Enbridge took over the delivery of Greener Homes Grant in January 2023 and came out with the HER Plus program, they took over for Ontario. So there's no portal access for Ontarians
right now.
Same with Quebec and same with Nova Scotia. So the news that we've had recently has come specifically from Enbridge Gas. And then I also heard from another contact that Quebec is also on pause. So I'm assuming Nova Scotia is too. And the biggest reason for that is, like I had mentioned, the rest of the country runs under the Canada Greener Homes Grant portal. And when a homeowner registers, they put in their address, they get an application number, an AP number. That's what helps Enercan keep track of how many participants there are. But Enbridge in Ontario runs the program without registration numbers or application numbers. So there's really no way for them to know how many true total applicants there are. So they've put us on pause for intake of new customers currently. Anybody that we haven't completed the assessment for but was already booked for one up until February 29th, we can still complete that assessment and they'll still be able to go through the program, but we're not able to take on any new customers and get them booked in until further notice. There has really been no official statement that the Canada Greener Homes Grant is finished. The same with HER Plus, no official statement yet. We're in limbo, kind of waiting to find out, is there still room for more applicants once they finish this reconciliation?
Gotcha. And from my side, I've been talking to Ken Ria, who I recommend any solar installer to become part of. They do great work in working with the government. And they said they're very hopeful that there will be additional funding. And I think you mentioned earlier that there's some other organizations as well from different industries that are doing similar stuff, right?
I've been reaching out to a lot of the different organizations across Canada for all of the different retrofit industries. So NAMA, the North American Insulation Manufacturers Association, is involved in lobbying. I've spoken with HRAI. They're very active in lobbying as well. Martin Looms, the president, has sent out letters to all the different ministers, but also directly to Mr. Justin Trudeau as well. I've spoken to Fenestration Canada. They're also lobbying. They actually sent in a 26-page letter to the Prime Minister and to a bunch of different ministers that were also copied on that. So it's definitely gaining a lot of momentum in terms of the lobbying efforts that are happening. Energuy has our own lobbying efforts as well. We've reached out to local MPs across all the cities that we have advisors in and the cities that we work in. And we've been writing letters, and we have a petition as well, which I've sent out to our whole network to say, hey, let's add your voice. Let's help to make some noise about this.
So you're hopeful then that there will be additional funding, or where's your mind at?
You know, at this point, it's kind of all surmising. There's been some hints from different contacts, different connections. Some of the things that Enercan said to us back in November, don't worry, we know you're growing, don't change your business plans. There's going to be a big announcement. So, we really don't know if they have a plan for more funding or if there's going to be a new iteration of this type of a program. It comes down to, are they going to deliver it on a national, like federal level, or are they looking to push those rebates out to partner provinces or partner programs like they have in Quebec and Nova Scotia and Ontario? There's been some rumors circling around potentially Clean BC program getting some funding directly from the federal government so that they can run it themselves in BC as well. So if that's the case, maybe that's the kind of model that we see going forward. But again,
we don't know until
we know. Yeah.
When you look back to the current program or the start of the current program, and now with more experiences or more experience over the, let's say, last 2 years, more or less, what worked really well, would you say, in that program?
Well, I think right off the top, windows, the rebates for the windows were the major driver for the program. I think in 2021, 95% of our business, or approximately, was completely window referrals.
Yeah.
That was also the same year that I finally got to introduce myself to the solar industry, because previous rebate programs had never had rebates for solar.
Did not include the solar part, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was really exciting. We had that show in Toronto, and I had a booth there. So that was the first time I met you guys.
Correct. Yeah.
And that was really exciting because that was a whole new industry that I got to get to know a little bit. And solar has actually been a big driver for rebates for us and for homeowner participation, especially in the Western provinces. In Alberta, and Patrick, my counterpart in that province, he'll probably correct me after. I think his skew is about 40% solar and 60% windows.
So a lot more solar focused.
Absolutely.
So we can definitely learn from the Western Canadian guys how the solar industry can maybe get a little bit higher market share.
Yeah, one of the problems the solar industry and the uptake, I guess, in Ontario specifically would have been, we had the microfit program back in 2011 or whatever, up to, when did it end, Alex? 2016 or something?
I think the last 2018.
2018.
That was the end. Yeah.
And then a lot of companies kind of, either went out of business and or kind of changed focus, and there was not too much happening. So I think it took a little bit of time to get back up and rolling. I think what we're seeing now is a lot more solar, and this is, very frustrating, obviously, for them, specifically in Ontario, as these companies start rolling, and now, again, funding is shut off. It's what we always, in the solar industry, we always talk about the solar coaster, and I actually hate the term, but it's very fitting, because there's always something in this industry. We're very used to the ups and downs.
I think I'd have to say the same. We've seen the, programs come and go. And one of the biggest challenges for companies like Energuy is that right now we're really only relevant and we're only mandatory when there's a rebate program involved. Yep. So it's, times like this are the most challenging to try and maintain that, that positive momentum and keep everybody focused and driven. But we know that there's going to be something eventually. So it's a matter of, we're just kind of hanging out in limbo.
Yeah,
I think specifically the Ontario solar industry can learn from, let's say, the more established industries like HVAC or insulation guys and the window guys you mentioned.
Yeah.
It's not the first program to renew windows, I assume. So they know exactly how to deal with a new program, how to communicate that to their installers, to their customers, that there's free money, so to speak, available from the government. And for most solar companies and most provinces in Canada, a solar rebate is more or less a new thing. There were some smaller, provincial rebate programs, but this is the first really federal program where you can get money without too many hoops to jump, so to speak. So learning from the other guys, how they do it, is maybe something that the solar industry can really focus on.
Yeah, I would say probably the biggest piece of that is the education, the knowledge. Knowledge is power, and that's kind of one of the driving forces behind what I do specifically. I think contractors need to know about these programs. They need to feel confident in their knowledge of these programs to be able to talk to their homeowners and their potential customers about it. It can make the difference between making a sale or not making a sale. And I'm here to help people close more deals.
And have the right partners, exactly.
Absolutely.
To turn stuff around quickly, I guess, right? a lot of people didn't really know in the solar industry specifically how to apply for these grants and the Greener Homes program, and how to make it a quick experience for the quick, painless experience for the homeowner, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it varies from province to province too. And throughout the 3 years that this program's been open, it has changed in certain provinces, specifically Ontario. Yeah. So it can be a challenge. One of the things that I think Energuy does really well is we do our best to make things easy for contractors and for homeowners. We want to make it easy for the contractors to understand what their parts are in the program and what they should be doing to help drive their business that way. And we also want to make it easy for homeowners, not only to get into the program and, if it's going on the portal and learning how to register or uploading their documents or just having those reports on time, and in a quick manner. So we really want to help people through the process.
Amazing. There's some challenges that you found with the program, some things they could have done better?
I think initially there was a very long wait period when people would apply on the portal. It took they would get their AP number right away, but it would take them a long time to find out if they were approved to even move forward. So a lot of times, they would be thinking, well, how come the service organization hasn't called me yet? Because when you apply, you can choose a service organization. But we didn't get their customers' information until they were approved by the government. So that, at the beginning, that was like 8 to 12 weeks. Yeah.
Well, I remember applying myself for it, and you're on the website, and then there's just a list of names of different service organizations. I'm like who am I going to pick? It's like, oh, this one has a good name. Let's pick that one. Like, it didn't make any sense. Like, there was no information about the different service organizations. I think that from my side, I didn't like that too much. But like any other stuff?
Now you're making me think. I think there's definitely, the eligible products list has been a challenge for a lot of people, and not the fact that there is an eligible products list. And this is more specifically for the HVAC side of it, with the heat pumps, but understanding how to read that list. There's very little information. There's lots of room for misinterpretation of it, and just lack of knowledge on how to even search for a package. And the same thing for the windows. There are eligible products lists for windows. For hot water heaters, the heat pump hot water heaters, that part of it has been a challenge. And it's taken a lot of my time and energy over the last 3 years teaching the HVAC industry this part of it. It was much easier for me with the solar industry because there was no eligible products list. So that was great. It was more so teaching the program itself, the rebates, how to get into the program, what we're going to do for the customer to get them through. And what we would need from the solar installer to be able to document everything properly. That was pretty much it. So I think there's definitely some things on the administrative side that they could have made a little bit easier, or, just a little bit more training on that eligible products list might have helped.
Yeah. And the interest-free loan, did that work out pretty well, or are there any issues with that? Or
the loan is it's very interesting because it's meant to help homeowners be able to do deeper retrofits. Now, the loan is still available. It's not on pause at all, and even in Ontario, it's still out there and available for homeowners to apply for, but it does require that energy assessment before you can apply. One of the biggest disconnects is that it does take a little bit of time for the advisor to not only gather the data in the home to be able to model it, but then to take that information home, put it in the modeling software, create the reports and the recommendations, and then for the service organization to actually get that uploaded to the portal, whether it's the Enercan portal or that's, in Ontario, that's the Enbridge gas portal. And it takes until then for the homeowner to get access to the loan application. When HerPlus took over the program, January 2023, before that, all homeowners had to apply for the Greener Homes grant on the portal, like we mentioned. And then after a certain amount of time, they would have the loan option appear within their portal. But when Enbridge took over in 2023 and the portal was no longer applicable to anybody in Ontario, that link was Now, very difficult for anybody to find. And it's even more difficult now. They've moved it completely. And I know what I'm looking for. I know the Canada Greener Homes website. I've been on it about 1,000 times. I know what I'm looking for, and it still takes me 20 minutes to find it. That's a very simple thing that should be much easier to find for Ontarians.
Exactly, especially for homeowners that are not necessarily applying for loans or subsidy programs on a daily basis. So making it simple and easy to understand the process is
and easy
a big
to navigate.
thing in general. We mentioned all the other industries, from the glass guys, the insulation, HVAC, and the solar guys. You mentioned glass took most of the funding in Ontario early on.
Early on, yeah.
How did that develop? How did solar fare at that point towards?
I think solar has definitely played a big part and taken a big chunk of the funding for the Canada Greener Homes grant across all the provinces. In Ontario, Energuy kind of found ourselves in a bit of a situation back in June of 2023 because of the popularity of HER+, the increased rebates on the heat pumps, making them pretty close to free. Those coil-only packages, and business exploded. So, I had been putting some effort into trying to get that HVAC business, growing a little bit over the last couple of years. And when it exploded, we found ourselves very strained for capacity, which, can cause some issues, booking out further, not being able to get in as quickly. So my efforts to drive solar here in Ontario, definitely, I've been on a leash. To be honest, I have not been able to actually go out and drive more sales because we've been working to try and grow just to keep up to, the natural growth of the program and the demand that's coming in. So for myself personally, I wish that I'd had the ability to push for solar more in Ontario. I think that was a big industry that we didn't really tap the way we could have.
Not in the way you did in some other provinces, I guess.
Yeah, definitely solar, for our western provinces, Alberta, even Manitoba, a little bit of Saskatchewan as well. Definitely a lot more solar happening in those provinces. I hear it has something to do with the total sun hours that they get.
No, I don't think it has very much to do with that at all, actually. The sun numbers are somewhat similar, and the ROI actually is quite similar as well. I think a lot of it has to do with just the maturity of the industry, where Ontario was really far ahead a while ago, but then kind of shrunk back because of the program discontinuing that we had here. But Alberta was in the prime of its solar adoption with provincial programs that were already in place. Same for Nova Scotia as well. They had really good programs already, and then they were able to stack some of this stuff on top of it, right? Which then is a double whammy, right? And it just becomes a no-brainer for people.
Absolutely.
PEI is another example that is extremely busy as well. Really high adoption rate for a very, small province. I think that would be the reason why Ontario was maybe lagging a little bit behind.
When you go through the process as an end customer, you get an energy audit. The audit shows from the thermal envelope of the building to savings on whatever, for example, the electricity portion of it. You have all these options laid out in front of you. Do you think it's more the end customer deciding, okay, I want to do windows, or I should get a solar system on the roof? Or is it more the salesperson that is opening the door and say, oh, by the way, we have that great program. Would you like to participate in that? It would give you X, Y, Z. That applies to their specific business. That drives the decision? Or where do you think is that decision coming from?
I think that's an excellent perspective because it definitely has changed. I think 2021 and 2022 was very much contractor-led discussions. Mm-hmm. Hey, I'm so glad that you're interested in windows. By the way, did you know that there's a rebate? Hey, I'm so glad you're interested in solar. By the way, did you know there's a rebate? 2023 was a turning point because, our business is completely referral-based. We don't do a lot of, internal marketing. It's all, working with our contractor networks. But what happened was in 2023, the conversation was customer-led. Customers knew about the program. They'd heard about it. They didn't even know what a heat pump was. They didn't even know if they could do solar, but they started making the phone calls and trying to find out more. It was so interesting to see that, because it really was a true evolution. And it took to year 3 before they really started, driving that conversation themselves. Well, what about the rebate? Tell me about it. What kind of product, So when it comes to our reports, our first and primary recommendation is always going to be, why did they come to us? They're thinking about windows. They're thinking about solar. They're thinking about heat pumps. They're thinking about insulation, topping up their attic, whatever. And so that's going to be our first recommendation. But we always want to try and recommend as much as possible for homeowners, because they have to have that recommendation there on that report in order to be eligible for a grant. So even if they're not thinking about it right now, maybe they want to think about it for the future. We want to make sure that they're eligible. So we're going to give those recommendations for them so that they can start to think about the different possibilities and how they can make their home more efficient, more comfortable, and save money on their utilities.
And it's your audits pretty much are a holistic audit of the entire home.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really focus on one part only. And by having that comparison, what primary energy can you save by doing option 1, new windows, option 2, new front door, option 3, maybe replacing your furnace system with a heat pump, and option 4, maybe adding a solar system. People have that choice to see, okay, what impact do different decisions make on their own home?
I think it's very interesting that you said that the conversation changed. I think it really is that's a success story, of the program, that there was enough awareness out there for people to just apply without there being a salesperson knocking at their door and asking them to apply as part of getting new windows or a solar system. And it would be a real shame to see the program discontinue.
It's true. Even the contractors that I was, that I've been conversing with for the last few years, they were saying, our business has totally changed because customers are calling us and asking for quotes, specifically because of these rebate programs. And it sometimes can stimulate the market a little bit early. We've seen that in the past because of good programs that have good rebates. But at the end of the day, all of this stuff, the deeper retrofits that homeowners are doing, we're saving more energy in our homes. We're putting out less greenhouse gas emissions, which goes towards our net zero goals. And it's stimulating our economy. So these programs are twofold. They have multiple levels of benefit to homeowners, to Canadians, to their country, to our economy, and to our goals as a country on the global platform as well towards hitting that net zero goal.
Putting yourself into, designing a program like this, what would you do? What would be on your wish list if it gets renewed? Like, is there any other things that you'd like to be included? Anything that, shouldn't be included, or anything along those lines?
I think Canada Greener Homes really had a good grasp of what products to include, what upgrades to include. When they design programs like this, there's an end goal in mind. And I think with a program like this, we have to look at what is that end goal. I think that end goal truly is, how much greenhouse gas emissions can we save? When we go back to the Paris Summit and we have to explain how much energy we saved as a country towards our net zero goals, how are we going to do that? Well, that's by having the energy assessments before and after. It gives you that snapshot. And when you do your upgrades and we come back to check the house out and see what upgrades did you do, we find exactly how much energy you saved by doing that specific upgrade. So, I think in terms of putting together a program, they're looking at what upgrades save what amount of energy. Mm-hmm. And I think that they've put together a pretty comprehensive list of things. And also, what are we going to in the future? If we look at the HVAC side specifically, and I apologize for talking so much about HVAC, but, on the electrical side of things, we're pushing for heat pumps. And a lot of that conversation and the hubbub is our grid can't handle it. Well, what an awesome opportunity for solar to come in and help that. That's a solution that homeowners can actually get now in their homes. And it's much more tangible now. It's much easier for them to get into having a solar PV system on their home. Yeah. Where before it might have been more of a pipe dream.
And we're talking about electrification pretty much on all these levels, from your home heating and home cooling to your on-site generation as a solar system you just mentioned, to even when people see, okay, I now have a heat pump. I probably put a solar system on if I have the space. Maybe I drive an electric car, to really package that together in a more electrified, carbon neutral package.
Absolutely.
One of the things, that doesn't get talked too much these days in the Greener Homes program, because I guess there's just not enough funding for it, is the storage component. I assume you guys didn't have too many projects that had a storage component with it, right?
I didn't personally see too many come through. In my role, I don't really see that side of it as much. But definitely we had some questions about it. Lots of installers asking. Homeowners were curious. Mm-hmm. I think maybe they're still a little bit, still not quite ready for that side of it. And really it's something that you need to look into. If you're looking at a solar PV system for your home, you're driving an electric car, you have an electric heat pump, you're reducing your carbon emissions, but what are you going to do if the power goes out? Yeah. What are you going to do in the middle of winter when it's been cloudy for 2 weeks and your solar generation has been very nominal?
I think when we're talking about electrification, a storage component is a huge part, and we see it with specific markets that have a very high adoption rate of solar. The Yukon Territory comes to mind, PEI, where they're now looking very intensely at a storage requirement. Same in the US with California as well. It's basically a requirement there as well. So the problem has been that the funding, I think it's $1,000 towards it, right? It's just not enough.
It's not, and it's a secondary rebate category anyway. So you can't just you can't just go into the program just for the solar batteries and the storage options. You have to do it on top of one of the primary categories. So, from what I've understood, and I have a very basic knowledge, so please forgive me. A lot of homes, the average install for solar PV is around between 5 and 10 kilowatts. And if you're going through the Canada Greener Homes grant, you're maxing out the grant already at $5,000 by doing a 5 kilowatt system. So even if you did do a solar battery as well, there's no money left.
You're not getting more money.
You're not getting $1,000 on top of that. You've already maxed it out. So, maybe offering the addition of that rebate, which is very small to begin with, would be a little bit better for the industry. It might help homeowners make that decision a little bit easier.
From our side, we've seen a crazy amount of price reduction on storage over the last, what do we think, Alex, 2-3 years?
2-3 years is good time frame, yeah. Specifically in the last year, it was significant.
And now we have products where, I think $10,000 or less, you can get the equipment required for 10 kilowatt hours of backup. And if there was a program or was a little bit of an incentive, I think the adoption rate would just skyrocket. I think we will see that anyways, but I think it would just even go further if we had some incentive. So from my side, I think that's one of the wish lists. Mm-hmm. Justin Trudeau, if you're listening, we would love to have $2,000 towards or $3,000 towards the storage component. That would be huge. What about you, Alex? What is on your wish list?
I think generally an easy to understand program, no matter what the name of the program is always the most important first. Clear communication, clear expectation, what you're getting, clear timelines, that we don't have a stalemate, that we don't know what's going to happen, we don't know what the future brings, or people that applied for something have to wait forever and don't even know if it ever comes. And then, of course, the payout of either the financing portion, if you opt for financing, or your rebate portion, that it's quick and efficient. Because no one wants to wait forever until they get the financing finally approved and finally getting their rebate. It's really something that you want to do something, install it, get your rebate, everyone is happy, move to the next customer. And then just when we look into multiple industries, that it's maybe not just one pool where everyone is picking out of that pool, but maybe have some more allocation to certain industries. That we have a certain percentage points that go to insulation, for example, certain percentage points for HVAC, and a certain slice of the cake to solar or battery storage or whatever it might be. That makes it a little bit more predictable and not very lopsided as the 95% on the windows you mentioned earlier. I think that would be, again, if it's today's program with the greener homes or a future program a few years down the road, federal, even provincial, I think that is the core of a successful product. Rebate product.
Yeah, and I think there should always, it should never be, you're mentioning HVAC, heat pump, where it's basically free for a homeowner to get that installed. I don't think it should ever be, or close to, I don't think it should ever be that way where it is too good. Then it becomes too easy and people just, make money. But I think there should be, there should still be some investment from the homeowner, regardless of what it is. And then the government helps it. And it should be a good return of investment, but it should never be like a no-brainer because that just uses up funding and we're just giving away money at that point.
And I think that's exactly what we saw in 2023.
Yeah.
The incentive for heat pumps was, even bigger than what it had been. With the HER Plus top-up through Enbridge. And that really changed the market this year. The increase in volume and participation from homeowners was just gigantic. We almost doubled. Well, we did actually double. We more than doubled in 2023 the number of jobs that we completed compared to 2022 across the country.
That's massive, yeah.
It's massive.
Yeah. And you could have done more, it sounded like, right? You were kind of limited by for getting
we
people
can only
to do
grow
the assessments.
So fast.
Yeah.
It takes a good chunk of time to get a brand new energy advisor not only trained and passing their exams, but feeling comfortable out in the field so that they can go into homeowners' homes and do these assessments and give recommendations and actually be the expert. You can't just throw somebody out, in a week and expect them to know what they're doing.
How many people do you have nationwide?
We're up to pretty close to 200 people.
Okay, that's impressive.
Now, about half of that is internal staff, like office staff and admin, which is a giant number for us. We used to be about 2 to 1. We'd need one admin person for every 2 advisors out in the field, and now we're about 1 to 1. So we're close to, I think we might have actually broken through 100 advisors across the country, and we have close to half of that in Ontario alone.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Yeah.
So HVAC, guys.
Business to be had.
Good stuff.
I want to circle back to something that you mentioned on your wish list about the payments and with the loan, I think my wish list would be that it would not be post-funded.
Yes.
When they brought out the loan portion of this, they wanted people to be able to do deeper retrofits. They expected contractors to install equipment and be okay not getting a payment for however many months it took to get the loan funding to actually be direct deposited. And my second wish is for the rebate to not be sent in the mail. It's a check sent in the mail where the loan is direct deposited. Come on, people, we're in the 21st century here, and we know how direct deposit works. This should be something very simple. Process the file, get a direct deposit.
Yeah, I can only sentiment that. It actually, being from Switzerland, growing up in Europe, in a banking country, it blew my mind coming to Canada that people are still using checks. Alex, Germany.
Same thing. I've never seen a check in my life before I moved to Canada.
I don't know how to write one, so.
Yeah, it's crazy how we will still do something like that from the 20th century, right? Everyone should really know how to use direct deposit by now, and especially the government.
Yeah, it seems pretty simple.
From an installer perspective, specifically, as you mentioned, the funding portion of it, it's super critical. If you have multiple customers in the pipeline and you're installing on a weekly basis or even a daily basis if you're a larger company, you cannot
You
fund
can't bankroll
$20,000, $25,000, $30,000 per system until someone in the government finally decides to send a check out or to issue the payment. It's just not feasible, not scalable. Yes, you can do that for probably a couple of projects and maybe some more if you have more funding in the background. But it's not a solid,
It's not a great plan.
Exactly.
We got customers, they're doing 150 projects a month, right? And that's a significant amount of cash just on equipment. We're talking about $10,000, $15,000 of equipment for a 10 kilowatt system, and then we
typically
have,
it should be milestone payments.
Yes.
That you have some money upfront that may or may not go to the end customer. Typically, it should go probably to the installer on contract or whichever way that is, just to make sure that the money ends up where it needs to be. And then with your final audit, a certain amount of time after, the clear message that now the final distribution is being made, contribution.
Yeah, and I think a lot of contractors might have promoted the loan portion more if they could guarantee that they would have that funding up front. It made it so that the only people that really could take advantage of the loan were those that could afford to do the job already.
Yep.
And could front it and then get reimbursed by the loan
and profit
later.
off that loan option at 0% for 10 years. Exactly.
So a lot of companies were offering interim financing at 0% with deferred payment plans and things like that, which is awesome. But now you've got 2 hits on your credit when you're going to apply for that Greener Homes loan, which is that they're looking at that.
Yep.
And it also means that, if there is a delay, let's say the customer is applying for the loan for solar and for windows or insulation, and they get the solar job completed, but they're still waiting on their windows. So they can't do their final assessment until they're done all their upgrades. Now they still haven't gotten that loan payout, and they still haven't gotten the grant payout until the final assessment's done. So if that took 6 more months after, and you guys offered them, or the installing contractor offered them, let's say, a 6-month deferral, and it's already been 9 months, well, now they're paying that interim financing while they're still waiting for the Greener Homes loan to come in. It caused a lot of frustration, a lot of panic to customers, because delays like that can happen very easily.
When we look into home prices and people being maxed out on their mortgage, specifically in Ontario and BC, from a lot of customers or installers, we heard that some people, specifically in the GTA and the Greater Vancouver area, apply for the funding or the loan specifically and have issues qualifying for the loan. Is that something you see, and is that indeed a problem for those 2 core regions, or
any other
your
provinces for that matter?
I would say I haven't had a lot of reports directly to me about that. The loan is looked at on an individual application basis. It takes into account your credit score. There is a minimum credit required, so it's got to be 650 or greater. They also look at your total debt to service ratio, which can't be more than 44%.
And that's the problem typically for these relatively over-leveraged households, nowadays specifically.
Now, one thing that they also take into account, which a lot of people don't realize, is fair market value. So they're looking at the quote that you are uploading with your application, and they're looking at what the fair market value is. Does it line up with fair market value? Because if it doesn't, well, they're not going to approve the loan for that entire amount. They might only fund for fair market value. And then you still have to pay for the rest of that project yourself. Yeah.
But that is actually a really good thing that they do.
It is.
Because nobody wants to overpay for something. And I know specifically in the US, it's something that's very common with how in the solar industry and how some companies are paying their salespeople, where they set the price and everything that the salesperson is able to sell above that price is in their pocket, right? That's their commission. And that is obviously a really, that lends itself to scamming. And we don't want that in this industry. It's not good for our reputation or the reputation of the industry.
I think it promotes fair competition for sure. Even from the manufacturer level, Sometimes we see when grants come into play that the prices of your product from the manufacturing and distribution level go up.
Are adjusted.
They're adjusted, and so this helps to keep that in check as well.
Do you know on top of your head kind of how they do that on the solar industry with the fair market value?
From what I know, which is very, very little, is that they have industry experts from all of the different retrofit industries that they offer the grants for. So they probably have somebody on staff for solar expertise. And I don't know exactly how they would, find out what that fair market value would be.
It's quite interesting, but good to know that they do that.
I mean, maybe, if we kind of drill into this, when you're applying for the loan, you have to upload your quote or your contract or your estimate.
You have a database more or less.
You have a
from all the other people
database.
applying.
So they can see from all the different installers what the average prices are going to be for specific size projects and that sort of thing. So that's probably where they're
so there's like a certain
from.
percentage that you can be over, but if you're like 50%, if you're at $40,000 over 22 kilowatt system, $22,000 average system cost, and that is obviously too much. I think it's also good because I was wondering how they dealt with it if like there was a roofing company that would also do the roof at the same time and just roll it into the Greener Homes program and the financing, right? How would the government or the program control that doesn't happen? But this would be an easy way to kind of stop that, right?
Yeah, and I mean, they do want detailed estimates or contracts or quotes. Sure. The only thing that they will cover for the funding is eligible upgrades and things that are required for that eligible upgrade.
Yeah.
So even though a roof is required for most solar installs, putting a new roof on your home to be able to do solar, I don't think they're going to look at that as a necessity.
Of course
they
not,
probably won't cover that portion of it. They would ask for either a better breakdown or unless it's already broken down, then they can see, and they'll cover the cost of the install for the solar.
Yeah, my thought was that, the roofer would say, okay, we're going to kind of, hide it, and we're going to re-roof the house at the same time and just charge you $8,000 more for the solar project, right?
Yeah, I see.
But this would clearly stop that. Which I was always wondering how that was being handled. Alex, you have anything else you want to ask Lindsay?
I'm good.
Awesome. Lindsay, thank you so much. For our listeners and viewers, how can they, follow you and, follow your work?
Yeah, so we are on social media. We're on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. You can follow Energuy Canada. I'm also personally on Instagram, which you can follow me, Lindsay Showers-Pearce. And we do post updates on what's going on and different things. My most recent one is our petition. So if anybody's out there listening and interested, feels passionate about keeping the Canada Greener Homes grant alive and well, please sign your name to our petition as well.
Where can they find the petition?
I have it posted on my LinkedIn right now.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. And you're quite active on LinkedIn, so I saw that. Again, thank you very much. I also want to say a special thank you to Hazeen and Abdel for creating our new room here to host these podcasts. Really excited, very happy with it. Alex, anything from your side?
Yeah, big thank you, and thank you for coming, Lindsay.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. Awesome artwork, by the way, Hazeen. Love it.
Yeah, if you want to listen to the podcast, please follow us on either Spotify or we're on YouTube as well. Come listen to us, and we'll have many more very interesting guests from the solar industry on this podcast. Thanks very much. Bye.